Hey YouTube, welcome back to another Angular tutorial. In this video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about data binding. So right here, I created a diagram which shows the different kinds of data binding. So each one of these blue rectangles right here is supposed to be a component. And inside a component, you typically have four files, which is your CSS file, your HTML file, your TypeScript file, and your spec.ts file. And in data binding, we're only worried about two of those files, which is the TS file and the HTML file. It's also important to note you might not have an HTML file inside your component, but in this example, we're just going to assume the component includes an HTML file. So the first type of data binding is going to be between the TS file and the HTML file. So we're going to pass data from the TS file to the HTML file inside our component. And we do this with string interpolation and property binding. The next kind of data binding is passing data from the HTML file to the TS file. And then in two-way data binding, we're synchronizing the data. So as the data updates in one file, it'll automatically update in the other as well. So let's start off with the first one. I'm going to show you how to pass data from the TS file to the HTML file. So right here is where I have my component. And you can see we have a CS file, an HTML file, and the TS file. I removed the spec.ts file just to make things a little simpler, but let's start off with the HTML, and I'm going to design our web page so it'll say, welcome to the website John, and I'll save that. Now if I open that up in localhost 4200, we'll see that we have a blank website which says, welcome to the website John. Well, what if my name wasn't actually John? What if my name was Caleb and I wanted to store my name inside the component, and then when the website loads up, it'll grab that data and display it on the web page? Well, first let's define that. So we'll say name equals Caleb. And then in our HTML file, we can use data binding to grab this variable and display it to the user. And we do this with the double curly brace syntax. So we can add our variable name here, save, and now it says welcome to the website Caleb. So let me give you another example of how we can use this. Let's say we wanted to add an image, and then we can set this image to a picture of a dog. And now we paste the image address in here, save, and now our website has this photo of a dog. But something we could do to make our code more tidy is that we could define the link inside of our TS file. So I'll say image URL, and I'll set that equal to the link. And then right here in the source, I can just use string interpolation and put that variable in here, press save, and we get the same effect. Now I showed you how to bind data from the TypeScript file to the HTML file using string interpolation, but there's also another way we can do data binding, and that's with property binding. And basically with property binding, we can go to any property we'd like, and we wrap it with square brackets, and then we set our variable in these quotations, and if we save, we'll see we get the same result. Now, what's another way we can use this? Let's say I have a button with a disabled property. I can choose whether or not this is disabled inside of our TypeScript file. So I can make a property called isDisabled, and I can set that equal to true. And then for this disabled property, I simply wrap it with square brackets to let Angular know that I'm using property binding. And then I can set this to isDisabled. And now you can see we have a disabled button. But if I change this to false, you can see that our button is no longer disabled. So string interpolation and property binding allow us to bind from the TypeScript file to the HTML file. But how about the other way around? Well, for that, we have something called event binding. And I'll show you how that works right now. Basically, how event binding works is when an event happens in the DOM, we can call a function in our TypeScript file. And I'll show you what I mean. So we can define an event like click on this button. And we can wrap this click event with parentheses to let Angular know we're using event binding. And then we can call a function, which could be something like display message. Now in our TypeScript file, I can define display message. And we can just console log event binding works. Now if I inspect and I go to our console, I press the button and nothing happens. So what mistake did I make? I forgot to save. So that's how event binding works. But right now I'm not really using it to pass any data to the TS file. I'm just simply letting the TS file know that the user raised an event. So how can I extend this so I can send data from the DOM to the component? Well, I could add an input tag of type equals text, and then I could add a template variable like user input. And then when the user presses this button, I can pass that user input the function. So this is going to expect a string of text called user input of type string. And then I can console log that message. So let's see if that works. Hello from the DOM. And you can see that that data got passed to our component. Now lastly, I'm going to show you how to upgrade this application using two-way data binding. So what two-way data binding does is it synchronizes the data between the component and the DOM, or the TS file and the HTML file, however you want to call it. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So let's have a piece of data called user message. And we'll set that equal to blank. And let's display this user message in a p tag in our component using string interpolation. And I'll save that. Now, obviously, we're going to see nothing because the message is empty. But let's say the message was hello. Let's say the message was hello. You'll see that we get hello here. Now, what I want to do is that whenever I type something into this text box, like hi, I want it to automatically update down here as I type. So whatever the user enters is automatically going to update the data in our component. Now, how do we do that? Well, we use the ng model directive. This is something you're going to have to remember. And we call this the banana in the box syntax. I didn't make this up. So you put a banana in a box. So basically square brackets and then parentheses inside. And an easy way to remember this is that property binding always uses square brackets. Event binding always uses parentheses. So we're kind of combining the two when we do two-way data binding, which sort of creates this banana in the box looking thing right here. But anyway, inside here we'll type in ng model. And we're going to set that equal to the user message. And now if I save this, we're going to get a bunch of errors. And the reason for that is in order to use this ng model, we actually have to go in our app.module.ts file and we have to import the forms module. And then we have to import it down here as well. Now if we save, I'll refresh. Oh, I forgot to add a square bracket here. Alright, now if we save, I'll refresh. Now everything we type, notice how hello automatically got put here. This is because the data binding is two-way now. So anything we type in here is going to be displayed down here. And that's basically how two-way data binding works. That's basically how all the different data bindings work. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, although you don't have to. And that's it for me, guys. Thank you.